Hi everybody, this is Christina Eve and welcome back to my channel, ShineStrong, LiveLong. This is an inspirational source for personal and spiritual development, encouraging you and I to become who we were designed to be with intentionality. This is a segment called ShineSessions, where I spotlight and have conversations with people who have said yes to God and are using their gifts and talents for God's light to shine strong through them. And as a result, the impact that they will make will live long after their work is all done here. Today is ShineSessions episode 9, and I am with Dr. Lakeisha Walker. She is a woman who wears many hats as the president of Bridge of Hope, Life Transformational Services, LLC, and founder of Love in Action Outreach Ministry. She is also a mental health and entrepreneurship therapist, and that is just to name a few of the things that she does. Welcome, Dr. Walker.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here, to be a part of this, to kind of share insight, shed a little more light, and also to just assist you with being able to fulfill a dream of yours as well, which is having this podcast and giving us a chance to meet and to unite. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you for accepting the invitation. So many people have just recommended you to come on. So I'm just like, yes, I got it.
that just touches my heart that people have recognized, the passion that's there. And often I say that definitely what's on the inside will come out. And so certain things just can't be hidden. And so I'm just grateful that something that I've done or said has actually touched someone to make them think, hey, other people may need to hear what she has to say.
Exactly. Look, okay, so you guys, the suspense is built up. So Dr. Walker, tell us a little bit about yourself and some things that you are passionate about.
Oh my goodness. So as she introduced, I am Dr. Lakeisha Walker. I have a private practice in Ahoskie, and it's titled Bridge of Hope, Life Transformational Services. So I provide coaching, counseling, and consulting services. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, which I received from Elizabeth City State University, the best HBCU there is. And I actually received a master's from Liberty University, and my master's in professional counseling, and my doctorate is actually in strategic leadership and leadership coaching. And I received that from Regent University. I also have a certificate in trauma. So I'm a certified trauma and resiliency practitioner that says a lot of CTRP, which is I'm certified trauma and resiliency practitioner. And I also have a certificate in women's entrepreneurship from the Bank of America Institute. So some things that I'm very passionate about is people development and purpose fulfillment. And I know sometimes we hear those and it just can come out as buzzwords, but I actually look for that in transform behavior and improve lifestyle and transform thinking. I think if we really do work and walk in that purpose fulfillment area, right? And if we do have that, then we should see some lifestyle choices. The way that we think should change. And so if the way that we think change, then we should have those transform behaviors, and the lifestyle choices should also be different because we've had that transformation in our thought process. And to me, that's what purpose fulfillment is. It's connecting to that thing that's greater than us, that we know that we were created for and designed for, and not settling for anything less than that. I remember just riding one day with one of my nieces, and she was around 7 at the time. And I don't know, we were just having conversation. And I told her, I said, never settle for less than what you deserve. Because when you do, you get less than what you settle for. And she looked at me just as cute. And she said, Aunt Keisha, that's a lot of lessons. And I said, well, let me try to explain it to you the best way that I can. And so ever since then, every time, it has just become one of my mottos. And people know that that's one of my famous mottos. And so every time I mention it, I try to relate it to a way like I did with her when she was 7. They help her to understand it. And the way that I describe that is that if you have something and if you know the value of that thing, right? That's what our purpose and our destiny is. When we know the value of that, we're not going to settle for anything less than that. So if I have a product that I want to sell and I'm saying, I know this product is worth $100, right? But what if someone comes to me and say, maybe you should take about 75. And then you start thinking, well, it won't hurt to come down to 75. But if you get desperate because you still haven't sold it at 75, then if someone comes through and say, you know what? I'm gonna give you $50, and that's all I have. And you take that 50, you settled for the 75, but you actually receive less than that, and you only receive the 50. So in life, I live very intentional and very purposeful about how I'm spending my time, how I'm utilizing my emotions, what am I allowing myself to think? Because if it's going to take me from that place of value with my destiny and my purpose, then I have to tell myself I'm not settling, because I'm going to end up with half of what I've created to be, and that's not going to work. So it was just the cutest thing. And if I could add anything to my list of accomplishments, I often say being Lakeisha is the greatest. Oh. Being Lakeisha is definitely my greatest accomplishment, but that never settle for less than what you deserve, because when you do, you get less than what you settle for.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So y'all see why she's right here on this show.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. That was like, and I went to church today, and like, I'm just like, oh, I just had a double dose. Praise the Lord. That was helpful. Ooh. So, okay. So, you are a leadership coach. Obviously, you guys, she's a leadership coach, because that was just a gem just that she just shared with us right there. So we can just imagine what her workshops are like. And she she consults with people, and she hosts many workshops in the surrounding community, and that's Northeast North Carolina. Is that correct? That's the community that you serve?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. So one of the workshops that you hosted was to assist African American female business owners. And for that workshop, you created the You Matter leadership development model that I've heard so many great things about. So with that model,
yay.
Yeah, I did my research. I wasn't playing. It said Dr. I was like, let me. So, but yeah, that leadership model, I heard so many great things. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Let me tell you about that. So upon graduation with this doctorate degree in leadership, I said, God, you did not allow me to walk the stage and have all of these sleepless nights and drinking too many Mountain Dews to stay awake, to just say, just say, I have this degree. There's something that you want me to do with it. So it was in 2017, and I was at the point of my degree program where I had to choose a board chair amongst the members there at Regent, and talk with a professor and about a product. And I was really just, I don't know, I was at a standstill. I couldn't think. And I was sitting at my office at the desk one day, and I literally heard God say, you already have it. Develop You Matter into a leadership model. So to backtrack, You Matter actually started in 2013 as a community youth conference. And I hosted this community youth conference at a local church. And when I tell you, I had close to 100 people there from ages 5 up until I had to expand it. It actually went into, I think I had someone there like in their late 20s. So I had a separate whole class for those 19 to 30 age group. And then I had it separated from like 5 to 7, 8 to 10. And what God gave to me one day, I had already asked someone if she would come and be one of my guest speakers. I said, I don't have the title yet for the youth conference, but when I get it, I'm going to call you. I said, I know my date. I know it's going to be here in Ahoskie. When I get my title, I will let you know. But she was just on board with it to come in from DC to be my guest speaker for that conference. I was literally coming out of Food Lion, and I heard the word You Matter. I heard those words, You Matter. And in 2013, you won't hear a whole lot about things mattering at that time. So what I try to tell people is that when God gives you something, it may sound foreign to people, and it may take 2 or 3 years before the world catches on to it, but you move with it when God gives it to you. That's what trailblazing is all about, right? Yeah. And so I know sometimes what that feels like when people feel as if God has given them something, but no one hasn't heard it yet. That's because we need to put it out there, then people will hear it. So in 2013, I hosted this youth conference, and it was called You Matter. And even then, I didn't spell out the word you. It was just the letter U and matter. So I immediately called the person who was going to be designing my t-shirts and the flyers. I said, I got it. I have the title for the youth conference. And God gave it to me to break down 4 different parts of you. And I used the same concept to develop this leadership model. And so since then, I have my trademark and other things, but it's just so amazing to just see how God has turned the youth conference into a whole leadership model that I was able to use. So that particular day in which you're speaking of, I actually completed a grant application for to teach leadership classes in rural areas with African American business owners. And I was the only business owner to be chosen in a rural area. The other businesses were out of like the Raleigh-Durham area. I saw a couple in Chapel Hill, but in this northeastern part of the region, then it was Bridge of Hope and Ahoskie. I said, this is nobody but God for sure. So they actually funded both of my leadership models, the Effective Leader and the You Matter. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to have something separate just for my women. Because I'm passionate about people development, but I'm very passionate about women walking into that place of value and knowing who they are. And so because You Matter, the first tier, it starts with people having a rebuilding from a personal foundational piece. And so when I'm teaching leadership classes or professional developments or consulting, I always talk with leaders about who you are as an individual. Because often we want to jump to the leadership role that we're playing, right? But we're not giving impact or the thought about the individual of who we are. So as leaders, when we walk in a healed place as leaders, it shows in our leadership roles. And so the first part of the leadership model, it looks at how do you see you? And that's looking at self-esteem, that's looking at self-worth, that's looking at your self-value. Because as an individual, if we have low self-value, we won't know our worth as a business owner. And it would reflect in our business owners and in our dealings as business owners. And so that's what we did on that day. And I wanted to have a small group. So I stopped the registration at 10 because I wanted to create a place of safety where these business owners could talk about whatever part of you that they wanted to talk about, because it was a day of empowerment for African American business owners utilizing the You Matter model. And so it starts with that rebuilding of who you are as an individual, and then it works through different steps. And then the fourth part of that, once we work through tier 1, 2, and 3, we actually get to developing the leader within you. Ideally, you developing the leader within you. And then that's when we look at the different leadership traits and not just looking at them to say, yeah, I'm a team builder, or yeah, I understand consistency, or yes, I understand that. But to what does it look like when you walk it out in your day-to-day life, in everything that you're doing, in your daily functioning? What does it look like as a leader to walk those things out?
I love that. Okay, so
and I get excited, so let me know.
No, like I'm over here. Look, it's bad. I'm taking notes. I was like, when is the next one?
It's okay.
I am an African American business leader, so I need to go to one of these. So one thing that you mentioned that I just really want to just put extra emphasis on is the fact that you said this was back in 2013. God gave you You Matter, right? Yes. And sometimes God can give us different ideas that we just don't know what to do with right now. But, some people throw them away, or they just like forget about it, or that was so long ago, that must not be for right now. God, I need a fresh word. And God already gave it to them.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, I started crying when I was at my desk. I heard his voice and he said, you already have it. Because I was praying and fasting. I was like, God, time is drawing near. I need to choose my board person. I need to choose my professor. I don't know what to do. And that day I was just sitting there. He said, you already have it. Develop You Matter into this leadership model. And when I tell you, Regent University, I absolutely love it. It's a very rigorous program. But when I talked with my board chair, I asked the person if she would be my board chair. She absolutely loved it. Her name is Dr. Wilder. And ever since then, she has asked me, okay, what are you doing with You Matter? Because this is going to start a revolution. Even when I graduated in 2018 with the degree and everything was approved, she said, this is going to start a revolution. So she's asked me, okay, what are you doing with You Matter? But it started in 2013 as a youth conference. And I still had all of the material. I had the flyers that I sent out. So at least I had what each tier was going to be. So switching it from a youth conference to a leadership model was kind of difficult because I had to provide my own research. Mm-hmm. So first I had to do a research paper on this to say, why would this be needed? How would this help someone? And then I had to find my own research to defend my own thought process. But it was an amazing experience, and I absolutely love the work that I've done since then. And so actually for the women part, so You Matter actually impacts females and males. So the women part of it is called Girls Are Pearls, the essence of me. And PEARLS is actually an acronym that stands for Pursuing Excellence and Reaching High Levels with Standards. Because as women, as we know that we matter, and as we're climbing this leadership ladder, sometimes we can be approached with things that can have us climb into high levels, but sometimes we forget the standard. So we can't climb into high levels and don't have the standard with it. So it's pursuing excellence and reaching high levels with standards. And so the male part of the You Matter is for males only. And that's an acronym as well, mentoring and aligning leaders with exceptional standards, because it's all about the standard. So since then, I've developed, I have a journal for males and females. I have like You Matter wristbands and keychains and ink pens and t-shirts and things of that sort. I actually have pearls on my license tag. That's my license tag, personalized license tag, because it's important, again, that in everyday life that we're making sure that we're keeping the standard while we're pursuing excellence and while we're reaching these high levels and while we're figuring out how much we matter, that now we have to make sure that we have a standard. So saying You Matter in 2013, I was just grateful that many people chose to come out, because the topics were something that was touching you, so now to be able to touch the you of business owners. And I also have a women's group that I meet with using the same model. So we have a You Matter women's group, and it's called Facing those crossroads. And I actually use the same You Matter model, walking them through the different phases of You Matter.
Amazing. Your professor, whoever was at Regent, they did not steer you wrong. You're right. Because that's a big thing.
It's on my mind what You Matter has become. I'm telling you.
Yeah, like, wow. Oh my gosh. So, okay. I love the standards aspect, because a lot of times, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced the same thing I've experienced, but even with people of color, whether they aren't of color, sometimes leaders, they lose their standards,
Yeah.
and it's something that we all have to be mindful not to do.
We do.
So I love that you're doing the work to remind people, hey, build your foundation, make sure it's strong, make sure you understand who you are. And then from there, we can build even more leaders.
From there, we can build up.
Yeah,
you can become anything that you want. Yeah, but that foundation being rebuilt. Yeah. So one thing that I often say is that in life, we can have cracks in our foundation, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're not careful, we're going to fill those cracks with other things. And so those things that we fill those cracks with, they're not always good things. And we might think that those cracks are filled and that no one can see that it's cracked. But whatever we're filling it with, because it's not part of our destiny and our purpose, it always stands out. Yeah. Like, it's just like having a cement, something that's gray, right? And then it's been filled with something that's black or something that's another color. Although it has sealed the crack, it stands out because it wasn't part of the original design.
Wow. It
wasn't part of that original design. Yes. And so although it's fulfilling that purpose of keeping this cement together, it stands out because it wasn't part of the original design. And so when we fill those cracks with things, it's not part of our original design. And those things actually stand out and we don't think so, but it impacts our ability to establish relationships or to maintain effective relationships and things of that sort. Just because, again, we filled those cracks with things and it impacts how we're seeing ourselves.
Yes. Wow. You said so much right here. Just like, okay. Because I was just thinking, because, people, it's human nature for us to notice the things that just don't sit right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just human. And that's just wow, that was a very good way to say that. And a lot of it, I love that it's so introspective. There we go. Where it starts people, you're looking at yourself first. That's how you start. Because there's so much that people are so ambitious. They have ideas. They want to do so much, but sometimes you're not there. Maybe you need to heal a little bit. Maybe you need to figure out who you are first before you jump into that relationship or try to tell somebody else what to do.
I definitely agree with that. That's a very good point. Yes.
Yeah. So
because again, it would impact that. Yeah. Minor arguments, you don't know how to solve conflicts effectively. And a lot of that is just because you have some inner healing that has to take place. And as leaders, can you imagine being in a leadership role and not being able to really connect with the staff that you're leading, or if you're leading in a church or things like that, because we are emotionally damaged ourselves. And that emotional part of that damaged part of us, it will hinder our ability to how we communicate with people. And all of that goes back to how we see ourselves.
Yes.
You know, we would have less competition in places, in the communities. It really bothers me to see competition in the community. It's enough work for everyone to do. And when we don't see it as that, when we see it as passion, people are going to always be drawn to you when you're working in your passion. So we don't have to compete, you know, but it would be less competition when people knew who they were, because you would know who you're assigned to.
Yes. Ooh.
You know,
Yes.
yeah.
You
And
can't be
so that
assigned
only
to
comes from a
everybody.
place, that comes from a place of healing though. You know,
Yeah.
that comes from a place of healing as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay. All right. So you're doing work with the African American community, right? With some of the leadership things that you have. Why do you think it's so important that we build leaders in our Black community?
I'm gonna tell you, I have so much that I could say about that. And if I could reflect for a minute, when I did serve for those many years as a youth president over a local youth group, every time we would go out places, I would say, okay, you all listen. You're representing God first. So then you're representing this church. So let me tell you who you represent. You represent every Black person who was denied the right to come out in public at one time in life. You're representing every Black person who couldn't learn to read and write, who couldn't stand to a restaurant and order their food. So we're not going to act like we don't have sense, is what I told them when we come out here, because you're not just representing you, you're representing the Black community here. Okay. And so we're going to show people that we do know how to act, because we've earned the right now to come out. So we're not going to be loud. You know, we're not going to say, hey, when you want to refill, you can say, excuse me, and you're going to learn your server's name. And you're going to dress them properly. You know, so those are the type of things that I instilled into the youth when I was working with them. Well, why it's important? Because we were denied the right for so long. And so now that we're here, we need to know how to show up. You know what I mean? And so we need to show up secure. And we need to show up whole. And we need to show up with something to say. And I tell a lot of my Black kids, because I treat adults as well as children and teens. But when I get my Black teen boys, I tell them, no, I ain't got nothing to say. I say, you know what? You're denying yourself the right to speak. You should always have something to say. See, I have people that I call my five, right? And my five consists of my parents, my mom and dad. This year, they'll be celebrating 52 years of marriage. My maternal grandparents. And when my grandfather passed away in 2001, they had already celebrated 51 years of marriage. Wow. And so my uncle, my paternal uncle, which was my dad's brother. And I often talk about my Uncle Willie, because he was born in the 1920s, a time when African Americans weren't afforded the right to learn, to read and write. And so he dropped out of school in like third grade, working in the field to take care of my dad and my aunt, right? And so what happened with that, he already had some intellectual disabilities going on as well. So he never learned to read and write. But he moved with us when my mom was pregnant with me. He moved back he stayed here, moved to New York with some family members, never learned to read and write now, but in New York, catching buses and things. So that was God that was with him. Yeah. Moved back here when my mom was pregnant with me and stayed with us until we had to put him in a nursing home. But he made sure my brother and I went to school every day. Wow. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not just doing this education thing for me. He made sure when we got off the school bus, we had two things to do: take off our school clothes, put on some play clothes, and get our lesson out. He didn't say do homework. His thing was get your lesson out. So we had a routine. I was a senior in high school. He was watching me get on that school bus every day, because you're going to school. You know, you're going to go to school every day, because he knew the value of education. And so since then, my family and I have created a Willa Rainer Educational Fund. And so I have students to come in, and I said, how cool, I'm going to get to use my uncle's name, who never learned to read and write, to make sure students could get an education, because he valued education, but he could never obtain it. So when I say as an African-American people, as African-Americans, we're doing this for everyone who didn't have that right. And how dare we mistreat something so precious that we were denied the right to have for so long? I refuse. So I thought this doctorate wasn't just for me. And my uncle passed away just as I had finished my master's program. I finished in May of that year, and he passed away in August of that year. And I was like, Uncle, but I made it. And so I kept his picture printed on my desk. And I said, okay, Uncle, here I am in this doctorate degree. I'm getting this lesson out every night when I'm crying and I'm rocking back and forth. I said, you told me to get my lesson out. You're dead and gone, but I'm tired, Uncle, but I'm still pushing. I said, because I'm going to get this lesson out for you and my parents and everybody else. And I remember when I got the call saying that everything had been approved from Regent, and my board chair called and she said, Dr. Walker. I said, what in the world? And I cried, but when I hung up that phone and I called my parents, and that evening my dad was like, we're gonna go out to eat. We went to Andy's here in Ahoskie. But when I went to their home, my dad cried for about 30 minutes. And I'm not exaggerating, it was probably longer than that. He said, I can't believe a doctor came from me, because neither one of my parents finished high school. So none of the 5 who raised me finished high school. My mom got pregnant with my brother. She was in high school, junior or senior year. So after she had my brother, she didn't return. My dad was older, he's older than my mom. And so he had dropped out of school in 11th grade. So my mom did take the GED test and she passed. My dad missed the test by a couple of points. He never took the test again, but they both went to trade school. So my dad got a trade in auto mechanics and my mom took up a nursing trade. So that together, they were able to provide a wonderful life for us. But as far as a formal education, neither one of my grandparents finished high school. So when I say Dr. Walker, I'm like, listen, you all, I'm going this to let you know, from a rural area, born and raised in Colerain, North Carolina, Dr. Lakeisha Walker from Colerain, a rural area where people have just given up on what can come from that area. 5 people who raised me, no one finished high school. My uncle, who was the main one, only had a 3rd grade education. So as leaders, like I said, we have to bring it every time. We can't afford to play with this, when it was something, again, that we were denied the right to have. Oh, and I probably said way too much, but I don't even know, it just flowed together. But we can't play again with something and take it for granted when people died for that right, or wish they could. I was like, my uncle was still signing his name with the X up until he passed away. Come on. Wow. And now we're going to play with being leaders? No. And that's why we have to make sure that the education piece is there and that we're healed, so that when we speak, that we're speaking with substance as leaders. And because we're not just representing ourselves, we're representing the whole past. I had a shirt made that says, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, so because we're representing our past, but we're also setting that high standard for what we want those, that's coming underneath us to do and to pursue. Yeah, I have high hopes for my nieces and nephews. I don't play with them. I have one now, he's in Central in the law program there. We're not about to play with this thing. No, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be a whole leader and an impactful leader. Yeah. I push my nieces and my nephew, like, go forward, be effective in that role. Show up, be to work on time. It's not good enough to say, well, we got this CP time. No, we're going to change that. If we're saying something starting at 2, we starting at 2. I don't care if one person is here, we starting at 2 o'clock, because we have to force people to get back into that mindset and to change how they're viewing us as a people and how they're viewing us as leaders. And that changes when we see ourselves, when we learn to value our own time as African-American people, and we learn how to value our finances better, it's a whole takeover.
Wow. I love that. And everybody has to have somebody to push them, and I love that you're setting that standard and you're thinking about the ones that come behind you. Yes. And that says so much to a lot of us.
I know I get on my niece's nerves, but they go along with Lakeisha because they know that it's all out of love. It's all out of love.
Oh yeah. They don't like to be pushed nowadays. These young folks. And I say that but yeah, they don't like to be pushed. But yes, I love that. I do. I said I love that like so many times in this interview, guys. Y'all probably gonna get sick of me saying that. But this is just giving. Okay, you are giving me life. So okay. All right. So wow, if you answered that question very well, I appreciate that. So as we pivot just slightly, you're also another capacity that you work in. is you are also a mental health therapist, and mental
Yeah.
health is something that we, ShineStrong Live Long community, we take very seriously. So do you have any advice for listeners when it comes down to developing a healthier lifestyle?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. So, what I encourage people is give yourself permission to feel. As leaders, again, we've told ourselves so many things about what it should look like, what we should say, how we should feel. And everything that we do is based on what we've told ourselves about that situation. So I was on a panel a couple of months ago, and they asked me, it was a mental health panel, and the person asked me what was my topic going to be. I said, the redefined perspective, because we have to redefine so many words. We have so many things that we're doing based on how we have defined a word. Strong, that's one word that I want to tear all the way down and just kind of rebuild what that actually means. Because people have told themselves, well, if strong means I can't cry. Strong means I can't admit that I need help. Strong means that I can't say that I'm tired. That's not what strong means at all. And so if we tell ourselves that strong means those words, we'll be almost in a breakdown, and we still won't ask for help because we've told ourselves to be strong, we got to keep going. And so one thing I say is give yourself permission to feel. And it's totally okay to not be okay. What's not okay about that is to walk around not okay pretending that you are. So give yourself permission to feel. I don't deny how I feel and how something makes me feel. I don't stay in it. But what we try to do is suppress it and act as if it's not there. And every time that we do that, what we end up doing is putting ourselves deeper and deeper in the ditch. So one thing that I say about Bridge of Hope is that I'm here to help you learn how to swim, because I'm not going to let you drown. So it's either swim or sink. But why sink when the lifeguard is right there, right? And so that's how I look at it when I'm thinking about things that we're going through, and that's how we need to really process our own emotional space. Give yourself permission to feel it, not to stay there, but to say, I need to feel this so I can know how to get out of this.
Yes.
Because if we act as if it's not there, we're never going to address it. Yes. So give yourself permission to feel it. And I know African American in our population that, that we have a strong Christian or spiritual, covering, a spiritual background, a spiritual undertone. And it's okay for us to be able to marry the two. I'm glad I obtained my degree from Liberty, which is a Christian-based school, with my mental health, because although we had scripture, they still taught us the science of it, but they taught us how to marry the two. So prayer, meditation, those the gospel music, those things are things that I always say are positive coping skills. But if someone is dealing with say grief, or if someone is dealing with the fact that they've been molested, right? Or the fact that maybe they were raped, or other type of emotional things that they're dealing with, you can't pray out that. You can pray about that, but you can't pray out that. But if you get someone that's trained in trauma, who is also a Christian. Come on. So I tell people I'm an evangelist as well. So I don't know who you're going to get sometime in sessions, or even when I'm teaching. I don't know who's going to come on the scene today, but I trust you. Trust me. It's going to all work together for our good, right? But if you get someone that's trained in trauma and really knows how to walk you through like cognitive behavior and other type of techniques, you can see healing in that area. And prayer can be an avenue for covering and teaching you how to fill those cracks with positive things and with the good part of the foundational part that has the cracks in it. But it can be a good covering, but you need somebody to walk you through those things. And I think that's how, again, we can marry the two. And we need to understand, that it's okay. And it's not that you're crazy. As African Americans, sometimes we've been told that, oh, I ain't crazy. Why I got to go talk with somebody? It doesn't mean that, because I know therapists who have therapists, and things of that sort, because they just know that we need to have a space where we can process things as well. And so in the African American population, I want to help people to understand that. I'm actually serving as, it's a student here. She's in early college, and she has a senior project. And she asked me if I would serve as her mentor. And that is actually her topic. And so she's having a panel in this area on March the 22nd. And her topic is African Americans and the mental health in the African American community.
Look, that's okay. That's great, because I was gonna ask you the question. So we all know there is a stigma on African Americans being okay with going to see a therapist. And it's almost, I watched a whole podcast of these young guys who were just talking about how they're from the hood and can't no therapist unless they've been shot at before tell me about my life, and this is like this stigma that Black men, sometimes Black women, they have, and they look down on people when they say, yeah, I'm going to see a therapist because I got some stuff going on that I need some help with. What is something you could say about that? I mean, like, I know you might be a little biased because, you are a therapist, but is there anything you've seen that maybe changed that stigma for some people? I feel like you have a story.
You learned me well. I tell people all the time, I have a million stories, and I really do. But from the male standpoint, my heart goes out to them, and it breaks my heart because from birth on up, what have they always been told? You're a boy, suck it up. You're a man. You don't do that, man. You don't cry. You don't do this. You don't do that. But you know what I tell my male clients when they come in? First of all, I always jump for joy when I get a call from a male client, wanting assistance to work through some things. I said, but you're human first. And every time you deny yourself the right to feel what you're feeling, you are saying that you're not human. It's not going to take away from your manhood at all. You are male and we're female, right? But you're human first. And that's the thing that we both have in common. And because of that, you have emotions and you have feelings. And again, it's okay to say, that something hurt you or something made you feel that way. That's why there's so much anger on the inside sometimes with our males, because the only emotion that society will allow them to feel or to display is anger. Anything outside of anger, society tells them that they're not a man and that they're acting like a punk or that they're being weak. And then you see them where they're releasing this anger because they've been taught and trained to think irrational. Because the only emotion that they are allowed to show is anger. And anytime you have irrational thoughts, you're going to have some irrational actions. And that's how it connects. And then because that's the only way that they can display that anger, so then they're fighting, and they're killing each other and things of that sort. When you get down to it, they have a broken foundation. Wow. And when you get down to it, and when they have that place where they can feel safe, they open up and they talk about the fact that, you know what, it bothered me that my dad wasn't in my life. Oh, it bothered me that I don't know my purpose. And I'm going to tell you how I know that, because I had a male who was on probation. And I had a male I was seeing who was in prison. And they asked me if I was scared to see him because he was an inmate. I said, no, I ain't scared to see him. Let's talk about it, because we need to talk about why he's there, because I guarantee you he has a story about why he's there. But the person I was seeing, this male on probation, I asked him in one session, what do you think your purpose is? He said, my purpose? He said, I'm this age. No one has ever talked to me about a purpose. He said, I guarantee you my dad, my uncles, or nobody in my family even know what their purpose is, because he was connected to a gang, father connected to a gang, uncles, older cousins in this gang. He said, no one has ever talked to me before about a purpose. And what did I say in the beginning? When people connect to that purpose, they have transformed behaviors because their thoughts have changed. And so our sessions after then changed totally, because then I started connecting him to a purpose and teaching him about what that is and what like self-respect and what value is from a man perspective, So I was talking actually with some male students yesterday. So it's interesting that you asked me that. And that's what one of them said. He said, but we always have to be in a protector mode. And if we're unable to protect, people make us feel as if we're not men. This was a high school student.
Wow.
That was a high school student. So the person I was seeing who was an inmate, he said, if I would have met you when I was a teenager or in my early 20s, I wouldn't be meeting you now. And I understood exactly what he was saying. He's meeting me now because he was in prison and he was required to have these mental health services. But if I would have met him when he was in the heat of what he was going through in his teens and young adult years, he said, you wouldn't be meeting me now.
That's powerful.
So what is that telling you? That he recognized the help that he needed then. He said they kept sending me to jail. Even then, he said, I didn't need jail. I needed help. Does that touch your heart?
Oh, it really does. I think everything you just talked about today, your stories, especially about your uncle, all of it has just touched me in just a different way. I love it.
Yeah.
So, I love it. I said it again. So, okay. So I have two more questions for you. So,
okay, all right.
We're going to pivot.
I won't give you long answers. I'm going to try not to.
Let the Lord lead you. So,
okay.
Okay. This one is a little different. So, for ShineStrong, LiveLong, we might have some listeners that are thinking about, whether or not to actually start pursuing a leadership role or pursuing what ideas that God has given them, or pursuing Christianity, saying yes to God. I don't know where they are in their faith walk, but people are all over. What advice would you give somebody like at that crossroad?
Get still and sit still. Yeah. Because sometimes it's in the business, and allow God to really speak to you about who you are. Because again, it's in that place that we can make firm decisions. A lot of times people waver in their decisions because of personal insecurities. Because when you're not sure about who you are, it makes it unsure for you to make positive decisions, right? And so we'll always be questioning and needing other people. What do you think about this? Not from a confirmation point, but almost from an approval point, and that's the difference, right? And so when we don't need the approval of someone, but sometimes we do need a confirmation to say, what do you think about this? But that's different. But get still and sit still. And if you are truly tired of living a life where you feel like, man, I just don't know my purpose, this is just not working for me, connect with someone who can help you get connected to that greater purpose, that greater destiny of why you were created. The second part of the You Matter model is just that, created on purpose for a purpose. So that's the whole name of it. You Matter, created on purpose for a purpose. And so when people walk around and they're not really sure of why they were created or what they're supposed to do, or if life will ever get better, whether it's from past family dynamics or other instabilities or being bullied as a child or whatever it was, feeling abandoned, whatever it is. When all of those things combine together, it has a way of like diminishing our value. And when we don't know that value and that worth, we're not able to make appropriate decisions. So get still, sit still. I journal a whole lot. The things that I feel like I can't utter to anyone, or that I don't know if anyone will understand, I write those things out. Give yourself permission to feel it. Let yourself have a crying session if you need to, to just let it out. And each day begin to process those things that have been hindering you. Dig deep within your own thought process and ask yourself, why am I thinking this? Why am I having this emotion? Because it's the thought and that emotion that's keeping us in negative actions or keeping us in places of stagnation. But when we can almost like take the lid off, I'm always buying mugs because I like inspirational things. So I found one with a horse on it, and it says, live as if the gate is open.
Wow.
Because when that gate is open, that horse is going through. Nothing is going to stop that horse from going through that gate. And so as people, whether it's you want to connect with God or you just want to connect and start a different career, don't allow fear to stop you. Take the lid off your own thought process. Get in that place of sit still. Tap into what those strengths are that you have, and then live as if the gate is open, because it is. We can keep our own gate closed sometimes. You understand what I mean? Yeah. And it's time out for that. It's a new year. And you have to be tired of living without. You have to be tired of making the same mistakes over and over. You have to be tired by now of living in a place of stagnation or living without, when there's so much joy. I just shared that today in the professional development. And this is exactly what I said. It's nothing to me more beautiful than seeing a person walking free in who they are. Because when you walk in that place of freedom of who you are, you shift atmosphere just because you're free. And then that leads you to greater places and higher heights in your leadership roles. But first, dig deep within that thought process and that emotional space. Give yourself permission to feel it, think it, experience it, and then heal from it so you can move on and keep that gate open. Keep that gate open.
Great answer. Great answer. I love the fact that you said still first. Sit still.
Yeah.
Get still, sit still, right?
Because we can be all over the place and we're still trying to do something. And when our thoughts all over the place, we don't realize it, but we're all over the place. And
Oh,
when we're all over the place, we'll start something here. Then the next thing you know, oh, the world is doing this now. Maybe I should do that. Well, my neighbor doing this. No, if that's not called for you to do, you can't do that. That's because the world is introducing that now, or your neighbor is doing that now, or society. Get still and sit still. Because again, we'll have 5 or 6 different things open and we want to accomplish anything. And then our thoughts tell us that we're not worthy. No, it's just that we're trying to do things that we weren't assigned to do to begin with. So get still and sit still and figure those things out. Like operate from your place of strengths.
so I love that you started with that. And then one thing that I think about when I think of get still, sit still is that go by yourself. Be alone for a while. Like maybe like take a little time off of social gatherings. But I love when you said connect, because a lot of the times we need to remember that we need to have meaningful connections in order when we're trying to have when we're trying to figure out some things with just our spirit man and just everything in our life. We don't need to be completely isolated, but we need to make sure that the people that are around us sitting at our table are people that we can get some answers from, people that are—
You're trying to have another whole hour.
Right? Look, meaningful connections, so important. And it's so hard to do because we've been a lot of us been isolated because of the pandemic, but then also as we grow, friendships change and they grow, and then finding new friends. We just have to make sure that we connect with people who are where we're trying to be or where we are now that are trying to grow. Oh, that's so good. So good.
One thing that if people are from this area listening, meaning the Hertford County, Berkeley surrounding areas, they were very familiar with Bishop Val Melendez. And so I grew up in his ministry. And one thing that he said was, is there something that you want to do, connect with someone who's already walked that path and allow them to mentor you. So it is about those positive connections and having those mentors. So in different phases of my life, it was like, okay, God, I feel like you're leading me here now. So I need someone who can help mentor me in that area. And it has really been helpful. And they see the fruit of it. And now I'm able to go out and reproduce and develop. And other people will see the fruit of that because of other people being able to walk into their purpose. So as we are getting still, we have to get still first so we can hear and focus and know what it is that we're supposed to do, and then connect with those people. And don't be afraid to disconnect from people, because everyone cannot go with you on that different journey. So you may have someone who has been in your life or who has been a part of your path for years, but when you get to this new phase and it's something new that you're trying to do, it's okay to say, well, I don't know, if that person, all of our A1 day ones won't stay with us. Depends on where we're going. Depends on where we're going. All of us won't be fortunate to be able to keep that same pack with us, but we have to find our tribe. That's one thing that one of my spiritual moms said. She calls it her bridal tribe of the people when she has women's conferences and like her spiritual daughters, she's forming this bridal tribe, the bride of Christ, but we're a tribe, connected with certain things. And so the main thing that we're connected on is the love of God, of course, but you have to find your tribe.
Yes.
And then when you're connected in that way, because we're not going to fight each other in the tribe, because we're going to be trying to help each other in the tribe. Yeah. And so it's about knowing who to disconnect from and valuing yourself and what it is that you have that much that you're protecting it. And see, as African Americans too, you have to think about it this way. For so long, we had so much taken from us. Right? And so now we're protective over everything, because the first thing is we'll say, I don't want to steal that idea. I don't want to steal that from me, because people have had so many things, taken from them in the past. But one thing I say, they might steal an idea, but they won't have the same level of impact.
Yeah. Wow.
So they won't have the same level of impact. And so knowing who to connect with. Yeah, that's important.
Good stuff. Okay. I don't want this to stop, but all right. Okay. All right. So everybody listening, if you want to connect with Dr. Walker, here is the time to get your pen out and some paper, because she's going to give us some information. All right. So if someone is trying to connect with you and all the things that you have going on, I will also put this down in the description box if you don't get that pen and paper, just FYI. But Do you have any upcoming events? How can we get more information about you and your workshops? Yes, please share.
Okay. So the website is Bridge of Hope, LTS.net, which stands for Bridge of Hope Life Transformational Services. The Bridge of Hope LTS.net. On Facebook, it is Bridge of Hope LLC. And on Instagram, it's Dr. K_Life Restorer. Because that's what God told me, that He wants me to restore life. So it's Dr. K Life Restorer. And on LinkedIn, it's Dr. Lakeisha Walker.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So I will have those linked underneath this video. And I will also.
And the phone number if they want to call is 252-862-8505.
Perfect. Awesome. Look, Dr. Walker, I cannot express how much you have restored life today. It just mentally, for me, this has been a very great conversation with you. I've learned so much.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I cannot, I just am going to be for sure following what you have going on, because I can't wait to see where God is going to take you next. So this is amazing. So God bless you, sister.
And I have a couple of sessions coming up too. I just thought about that, where I'll be teaching through the Small Business Center. And those are always free. It's just open to anyone. And now, because they're all virtual, you can connect from anywhere as long as you have internet access. And so, through the local Small Business Center here, 102-1 Community College Small Business Center.
Amazing. And guys, I actually attended one of her leadership sessions.
Yes, you did.
Yes, it was top notch. Okay. And for free. At least check her out. You know what I'm saying? They were the bomb. So, but thank you, Dr. Walker. And yes, I just thank you so much for just being a part of the show. Thank you so much. And I wish you.
Thank you for having me to be a part of your show and to just help you to fulfill your vision and your dream as well. Thank you so very much.